Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me ask Mr. Chipman, as a former IACP person myself, as a legal advisor a long time ago, these weapons are made by lots of companies. Is that not correct?
That's correct.
So is Colt the exclusive manufacturer of AR-15s?
No, they are not. We have a variety of ways that you can acquire an AR-15 model. There are imported ones.
But Colt has decided not to produce anymore, manufacture anymore. Is that right?
They describe the market as flooded, and it's my belief that it's flooded by foreign-made ARs and the ability to make one your own now.
Are some of those, would any of those be coming from Russia?
The Russian model that I'm familiar with would be more an AK variant.
AK-47?
Yep.
Are they sold here?
They're not only sold here, they're now manufactured in this country, if you're talking about Kalashnikov.
How long have they been manufactured here?
I'm not certain.
Okay. A few years ago, I was in Russia, maybe 3 years ago, and there was an effort then by the Russian government to try to change our policies and get more Kalashnikovs sold in this country. Do you know what they would have been trying to do? This was before the election of President Trump. I was there during Obama's term.
Sure. I'm aware that companies like Kalashnikov found it advantageous to build the guns here in America to not have to deal with some of the import issues.
And was there a restriction on them manufacturing here?
I'm not aware.
Okay. Do you know anything that's happened during the Trump administration that might have benefited Kalashnikov?
I am not.
Okay. Well, do you know the official position of the IACP on assault weapons?
Yeah. For many years, they have opposed and supported a ban on assault weapons.
And why is that?
I think first, as a law enforcement organization, they saw a threat to law enforcement, and also we're responding to these scenes. We are, I think, 200 off-duty officers. We're in Las Vegas being shot at. I know there were ATF agents. We have families too. And so I think it comes from a place that police are members of our communities, and they want to do a good job and keep streets safe, and these are particularly lethal and threatening when in the wrong hands.
But Mr. Chipman, how can you say that with a straight face when you realize that one good man with a gun could take out that person?
Yeah, I was trained to be that person, and I think that's a big myth. I think the first thing I learned when I was trained with Secret Service is, well, you don't have enough time to pull your gun. You need to get in the way of the bullet and get shot. So I think that's what we see, is the reality is that anytime you're responding to a shooting, a lot has happened very badly, and we can't have national policy relying on winning gunfights. We need to focus on preventing them.
I appreciate you recognizing my sarcasm. Chief Brackney, do you also agree in your group that assault weapons should not be sold in this country?
Absolutely, and what's actually is disingenuous is that we're arguing about terminology. When you're looking down the face of a high-powered, high-velocity weapon, do you really want to ask, is it an AR, an AK, and can you pull it one trigger at a time, or is it a semi-automatic, or is it something more? I also say the same thing is, when we're talking about even arguing pushing back against a only person that should stop a bad person with a gun is a good person with a gun. Actually, what stops a bad person with a gun is keeping a gun out of their hands to start with. And ask that from any law enforcement officer who's ever had to look down the face of a barrel. Go tell that to their families, their widows, their children. Tell that to the community and the persons from all of these mass shootings, that we're going to argue about definitions versus the impact that it's having on our communities.
I know this is hearings about assault weapons, which is extremely important, but there's also armor-piercing bullets. Do you also agree that armor-piercing bullets have no place in our society?
Absolutely. They were actually dubbed cop killers, is originally how they were put out on the streets, and that's because they could pierce through our bulletproof, our protective gear, our personal protective equipment. So absolutely, and the organizations that I represent and am a part of, PERF, IACP, Noble, and all of the other ones, we stand firmly behind that there are no place in society for the type of weapons that can do the type of damage to not only law enforcement, but to the community at large.
Mr. Chipman, you agree with that? That's the ICP position?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's ammo to defeat armor, like military armor, and then there are rifle rounds that defeat ballistic vests we wear
My
that are
time's about to
typically
expire.
rated to defend against handgun rounds.
I thank each of you for your testimony and your service, and I stand with the police and the sheriff's department and not with the NRA.
The gentleman yields back.